My aunt saved my life when I was 5. For 23 years, she reminded me every day. Now her business is failing and she wants my apartment. Update: the debt that was never real. I almost drowned when I was 5 years old. Family vacation at a lake somewhere in the mountains. I don't remember the name, don't remember the drive there, don't remember much of anything except what I've been told 1,000 times since. I was a curious kid, apparently. The kind who wandered. My parents were setting up the picnic, my older cousins were arguing about something, and I walked straight toward the water like it was calling me. I don't remember falling in. I don't remember the cold. I don't remember the panic of trying to breathe and getting nothing but water. What I know is what I've been told. I went under, I didn't come back up, and my aunt, 35 years old at the time, wearing a sundress and sandals, saw me disappear beneath the surface and threw herself into the water without hesitation. She pulled me out. She held me against her chest while I coughed up lake water and cried. She did what little first aid she knew, turned me on my side, rubbed my back, kept me conscious until my parents came running. By the time they reached us, I was breathing again. Alive. Soaked and terrified, but alive. My aunt saved my life that day. That's not in dispute. That's not what this post is about. What this post is about is the 23 years that came after. And the moment, 3 months ago, when she sat across from me at a coffee shop and told me that because she saved my life, I owed her my apartment. The lifetime of reminders. From the day of the drowning forward, my aunt made sure the rescue was central to every family narrative. Not occasionally. Not when it came up naturally. Constantly. Every birthday. Another year you wouldn't have had without me. Every graduation. None of this would be happening if I hadn't been watching that day. Every holiday. Remember who gave you the gift of life before you opened those presents. Every achievement, every milestone, every casual family gathering where I walked through the door, there was my aunt, ready to remind everyone present that I existed only because of her. That my life was, in some fundamental way, hers. When I was a kid, I didn't know how to process it. I just knew that aunt always seemed to want something from me when she looked at me, some acknowledgement, some gratitude, some payment I didn't understand. I learned to nod and thank her. I learned to say, I know, I'm so grateful, with enough enthusiasm that she'd smile and move on. By the time I was a teenager, I'd perfected the routine. By adulthood, I'd learned to dread family gatherings entirely. The rest of my family enabled her. That's the part that still frustrates me when I think about it too long. She did save your life, my mother would say when I complained about feeling suffocated. Just thank her, it makes her happy. She's never gotten over almost losing you, my father would add. Let her have this. Let her have this. As if my entire existence was something she could have. As if gratitude was a currency I was supposed to keep paying indefinitely, and the exchange rate was whatever she decided it should be. The drowning became her identity. My aunt had other achievements. She ran a small clothing boutique for years, she raised 2 kids who turned out reasonably well, she had friends who genuinely liked her. But none of those things got celebrated the way my rescue did. None of them made her eyes light up the way mentioning the lake did. It was as if her entire self-worth depended on me being grateful forever. And not just privately grateful. Publicly grateful. Demonstrably grateful. Grateful in ways she could see and measure and collect. She saved my life when I was 5. I've been thanking her for 23 years. Apparently, thanks wasn't the currency she was collecting. She wanted equity. She wanted ownership. One heroic moment was supposed to buy her my entire existence, payable upon demand. My adult life. Despite the psychological weight of constant debt reminding, I built a good life. I worked hard in high school, went to a state college on partial scholarship, graduated with a degree in logistics. Got an entry-level job at a shipping company and worked my way up. Nothing glamorous, but stable. Good benefits. Enough money to save. At 26, I bought a small apartment. $143,000. My own money, my own achievement. I'd saved for 4 years, lived with roommates, cut expenses everywhere I could. The day I signed the papers was one of the proudest moments of my life. My aunt attended the housewarming party. Of course she did. She gave a toast. Standing in my living room, holding a glass of wine that I'd bought with my own money, she looked around at my family and said, "This apartment exists because I pulled a little boy from the water 23 years ago. Everything he has, everything he is, I gave him that chance. Never forget." I smiled through gritted teeth. I thanked her. I played the role I'd been playing my whole life. But something shifted in me that night. The debt, apparently, included real estate. The debt included everything I would ever earn, ever own, ever achieve. Because I was 5 years old and fell into a lake, and she did what any decent person would do for a drowning child. I started keeping track after that. Every comment, every reminder, every time she made sure everyone in the room knew that my life was a gift she'd given me. I wasn't building a case, I didn't know I'd need one. I was just noticing. For the first time in my life, I was noticing what she was doing instead of just accepting it. Every birthday, every graduation, every achievement, you wouldn't have this without me. I thought it was love with awkward expression. It was account maintenance. She wasn't celebrating my life. She was tracking her investment, waiting for it to mature. Update 1. The demand. 3 months ago, my aunt called and asked if we could meet. Just the two of us, somewhere private. Her tone was different than usual. Not triumphant, not self-satisfied. Desperate. I'd heard through family channels that her boutique was struggling. Online retail had killed her market years ago, and she'd made some bad location decisions that hurt even more, but I didn't know how bad it had gotten. We met at a coffee shop near my apartment. She looked older than I remembered, tired in a way that went deeper than sleep could fix. She ordered tea and didn't drink it. She told me about the store. About the loan she'd taken out, the credit card she'd maxed, the savings she'd drained trying to keep things afloat. Her kids were grown and struggling themselves. They couldn't help. Her husband had left years ago. She was 58 years old, staring at bankruptcy, losing everything she'd spent her life building. I was sympathetic. Genuinely. I didn't wish this on her. Whatever complicated feelings I had about the lifetime of reminders, I didn't want my aunt to lose everything. Then she made her request. I need your apartment, she said. Transfer it to me. I'll sell it, pay off my debts, start over. You're young, you can recover. You can rent somewhere, save again, buy another place in a few years. I started to say that was a huge ask. That I'd worked for 4 years to afford this place. That it was everything I had. She cut me off. I saved your life, she said. Her voice cracked, but her eyes were steady. Certain. Without me, you wouldn't be sitting here. That apartment wouldn't exist because you wouldn't exist. Everything you have because I gave you the chance to have it. I'm asking for one thing back. One thing. After I gave you everything. The logic took a moment to process. 23 years of conditioning made it almost sound reasonable. Almost. My aunt saved my life when I was 5. Therefore she owns everything I've achieved since then. Therefore my apartment is actually hers, morally speaking. Therefore transferring it isn't giving a gift, it's returning what was always owed. She wasn't asking for help. She was claiming ownership of my entire existence and demanding a piece of it as payment. She said I owe her everything. By that logic, my mother owes her the child she raised. My employers owe her the work I do. Everyone who benefits from my existence owes her a cut. The logic doesn't work unless you believe saving a life creates permanent ownership of that life. I spoke carefully. I'd spent 23 years learning how to handle her, how to keep the peace, how to give her what she wanted without losing myself entirely. But this was different. This was my home. I'm grateful you saved me, I said. I've always been grateful. But that was 23 years ago. I was 5. I didn't ask to fall in the water. You did what anyone would do for a drowning child, especially family. I don't think that creates a debt that includes my apartment. Her face hardened. Something shifted behind her eyes. The desperate woman who'd been pleading with me a moment ago disappeared, replaced by something colder. Older. Anyone would do, she repeated. Do you know how many people freeze? How many people can't swim? I risked my life for you. I could have drowned. And anyone would do it, is how you repay me. Update 2. The escalation. The conversation deteriorated from there. My aunt became increasingly aggressive. Not physically, she stayed in her seat, hands wrapped around her untouched tea, but her words hit like blows. You owe me everything, she said. Her voice was rising. People at nearby tables were starting to look. Your education. I gave you the years to get it. Your job. I gave you the life to work it. Your apartment. It's built on a foundation I provided when I pulled you from that water. You are mine. Your success is mine. And I'm calling in what's owed. There it was. Said aloud, finally, after 23 years. What I'd always sensed beneath the surface of every birthday toast and holiday reminder. She genuinely believed she owned me. Not metaphorically. Actually. Because she'd saved my life, everything I did and everything I had belonged to her. The rescue wasn't an act of love or family duty, It was a purchase. And the bill was finally coming due. I offered real help. Money, advice, connections. She wanted none of it. Only the apartment. Because help is what you give someone in need. She didn't want help. She wanted payment for services rendered 23 years ago to a 5-year-old who never agreed to be indebted. The family involvement started within hours. My mother called that evening. "She's in serious trouble," she said. "Can't you help?" I offered to help, I told her. I offered to lend her money. I offered to help her look at bankruptcy options, help her find work, help her restructure. She doesn't want help. She wants my apartment. Silence on the other end. Then, "She did save your life. That means something." "It means I'm alive," I said. "It doesn't mean she owns my property." My father called the next day with the same basic message. My cousins reached out over the following week, 2 of them, kids I'd grown up with, kids who'd heard the drowning story as many times as I had. "After everything she did for you," one of them texted, "you really can't help her out." The family narrative had been building for 23 years. In their minds, I was the boy my aunt owned. The apartment was just the invoice finally being presented. Update 3. Examining the guilt. I spent a lot of time in the weeks after that coffee shop meeting examining my own guilt. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the conversation, her words, her face, the certainty in her eyes when she told me I was hers. Did I owe her something? Yes. Gratitude. I'd expressed it countless times over 23 years. Every birthday, every holiday, every time she brought it up. I had never once denied what she did for me. I had never minimized it. I had thanked her sincerely, repeatedly, for my entire adult life. Was lifelong property debt reasonable? No. She saved a child from drowning. That's heroic. It's also what family does. It's also what any decent human being does when they see a child going under. The act doesn't create ownership. It can't. I found myself researching life-saving and obligation late at night, reading philosophy papers and ethical discussions about gratitude versus debt. Gratitude is appropriate for gifts and help. It's an emotional response to someone's kindness. Debt implies a transaction with expected repayment. My aunt had been treating the rescue as a transaction for 23 years, with payment due upon demand. But I never agreed to that transaction. I was 5. I couldn't agree to anything. You can't owe a debt you never consented to create. If saving a life creates ownership, then doctors own patients, firefighters own houses, parents own children absolutely. The logic fails everywhere it's applied. You save someone because it's right, not because it's an investment. She never understood that. Maybe she never could. Update 4. The confrontation. 3 weeks after our first meeting, I asked my aunt to meet me again. Same coffee shop. I needed to say what I hadn't been able to say the first time. She looked even more tired than before. The desperation was settling into something permanent, carving lines in her face. Part of me ached for her. She was family. She was struggling. And regardless of everything else, she had saved my life. But I couldn't give her what she was asking for. Not because I was selfish, because what she was asking for wasn't reasonable. Wasn't possible. Wasn't mine to give in the way she imagined. "I understand you're struggling," I said. "I want to help. But I can't give you my apartment. What you're asking isn't reasonable. Saving a child's life doesn't create property ownership over that child forever. I'm grateful you saved me. I'll always be grateful. But gratitude has limits. My apartment is mine. I worked for it. I bought it. It's not part of a debt I never agreed to." She stared at me. Her face cycled through something: disbelief, hurt, rage, back to hurt. When she spoke, her voice was quiet. Controlled. Dangerous. "Limits," she said. "Limits." I didn't have limits when I jumped into that water. I didn't calculate whether it was worth it. I just saved you. And now you're putting limits on what you owe me. I'm grateful. You ungrateful, selfish. She stopped herself. But the word hung in the air anyway. We both knew what came next. I made one more attempt. "I'll lend you $5,000 for immediate debt relief," I said. "I'll help you look at bankruptcy options if that's the best path. I'll help you find work if you need to start over. But my apartment stays mine. Those are the limits of what I can do." She rejected everything. She didn't even consider it. "I don't want your scraps," she said. "I want what's mine. That apartment is built on years I gave you. If you won't give it willingly." She paused. looked at me. Something final in her expression. If you won't give it willingly, you're proving everything I should have known. Saving you was the worst mistake of my life. The breaking point. That sentence hit me like a physical blow. Saving you was the worst mistake of my life. 23 years of debt-keeping. 23 years of reminders and toasts and never forgets. And when the debt isn't paid, the rescue itself is regretted. The heroic act wasn't love, it was investment. And like all bad investments, she would undo it if she could, now that it's not paying off. When I said no, she said, saving you was the worst mistake of my life. That told me everything. The rescue wasn't love, it was purchase. When the purchase didn't pay off, she regretted the transaction. I was never a nephew. I was a lottery ticket that came up empty. I sat there for a long moment after she said it. She was gathering her purse, preparing to leave, and I was just sitting there trying to understand what I was feeling. Not hurt, exactly. Or not just hurt. Something like relief. Because for 23 years, I'd wondered if maybe she was right. If maybe I did owe her everything. If maybe the debt was real and I was just too selfish to pay it. I'd spent my whole life second-guessing my own gratitude, wondering if it was enough, wondering if I was ungrateful for resenting the constant reminders. And now I knew. The debt wasn't real. It never had been. She'd been building it for 23 years in her own mind, nurturing it, feeding it, waiting for the day she could cash it in. But I never signed that contract. I never agreed to those terms. I was 5 years old, and I fell into a lake, and someone who loved me pulled me out. That's where the story should have ended. She made it into something else. Something transactional. Something ugly. Some family members say, she saved your life, you owe her. But what do I owe? Gratitude, given constantly for 23 years. My apartment? No. My career? No. My future? No. One act of heroism doesn't create permanent ownership. Even heroes don't get to enslave the people they save. Update 5. The aftermath. My aunt cut me off completely after that meeting. Told the family I abandoned her in her time of need after she gave me everything. The narrative ignored my offered help, focused only on the refused apartment. Some relatives sided with her. She did save his life, I heard them say at gatherings I wasn't invited to. He couldn't give her one thing after everything she did? Others thought the apartment demand was too much. Too extreme. Gratitude is one thing, my mother said quietly one night, months later, but your whole apartment? That's a lot to ask. A lot to ask. Yes. A lot to ask. Family gatherings became impossible. Any event my aunt attended, I didn't. Any event I attended, she didn't. The family learned to schedule around us, two magnets that could never occupy the same space. Over the next year, my aunt filed for bankruptcy. Lost the store. Had to start over at 59 with nothing. She's working retail now, not managing, just working the floor. Renting a small place on the other side of the city. It's genuinely sad. I didn't want this for her. But I also know, even if I'd given her the apartment, her financial habits would have burned through that money too. She would have paid off her debts, maybe bought some time, and then made the same mistakes again. I would have been homeless and she would still be bankrupt. The apartment wasn't a solution. It was a sacrifice that would have helped no one. 2 years later. I still have my apartment. I'm 28 now, same job, same life. The place needs some work, the kitchen sink leaks and one of the windows doesn't close right, but it's mine. Fully mine. No moral asterisk, no unpaid debt hovering over it. My aunt and I don't speak. We'll probably never speak again. I've made peace with that. Some relationships can't survive the truth being spoken aloud, and she spoke hers that day in the coffee shop. Saving you was the worst mistake of my life. You can't take that back. You can't pretend it wasn't said. Last month, I was at a family gathering, a cousin's wedding. My aunt wasn't there. We're never at the same events anymore. But my aunt's daughter was, and she brought her own kids, and one of them, a little girl, maybe 8 years old, came up to me during the reception. Is it true Aunt saved your life when you were little? She asked. She'd been hearing the story, probably. The family legend that never died. I nodded. She did. I was 5. I almost drowned. She pulled me out. That's amazing, the little girl said. You must be so grateful. I considered my answer carefully. This child didn't need the whole story. Didn't need to know about 23 years of reminders, about the apartment demand, about her grandmother saying she regretted saving me. She just needed to know that yes, Someone did something heroic once, and I was alive because of it. I am grateful, I said. She did something heroic. But gratitude and debt are different things. She taught me that, eventually. The little girl looked confused but let it go. She ran off to find her cousins. I watched her go, then looked around the room at my family, the people who'd witnessed my whole complicated relationship with my aunt, who'd taken sides or stayed neutral or just tried to keep the peace. I was grateful to be alive. I would always be grateful. But I was also finally free. Final reflection. My aunt saved me from drowning when I was 5 years old. She reminded me of this every birthday, every holiday, every achievement for the next 23 years. I thought it was love, awkwardly expressed. It was debt collection, patiently maintained. When her business failed, she came for payment, my apartment. Everything I am, everything I have, exists because she pulled me from the water. Therefore I owe her everything. Therefore my apartment is morally hers. That's what she believed. That's what 23 years of reminders had been building toward. I said no. She said saving me was the worst mistake of her life. In that moment, I understood. I was never a nephew she loved enough to save. I was an investment she expected to pay off. When I didn't pay, the investment was regretted. I keep her picture on my wall still, the family photo from before the drowning, when I was 4 and she was 34. Before I became something she owned. Before the rescue turned into a receipt. In that photo, she's smiling at the camera, and I'm on my father's shoulders, and we look like a normal family with normal love and normal relationships. I'm grateful she saved me. I'll always be grateful. But gratitude isn't ownership. One heroic act doesn't purchase a human being. She taught me that by demanding the opposite. The apartment is mine. The life is mine. I didn't drown at 5, and I won't drown in manufactured debt at 28. I'm finally above water. Really above. For the first time. TLDR, my aunt saved me from drowning when I was 5, then spent 23 years reminding me constantly that everything I have exists because of her. When her business failed, she demanded I transfer my apartment to her because I owe her everything. I said no. She said saving me was the worst mistake of her life. We don't speak anymore. I still have my apartment. Sometimes gratitude and debt are very different things.